I'm just sitting here hanging out with Kenyon. He's one of the authors that came to Tupelo Con to tell people about his book and sell some copies. And I picked up a copy yesterday, and I was just telling you that I read the first couple of pages so far. I didn't have a lot of time last night, but I'm already hooked and ready to read the rest of the book. And then, of course, the following books in the series. I'm kind of looking forward to reading through the whole series, but thought I'd just let you tell us about this particular series, and if you want to start with what got you into, like, how did you get into actually being an author?
Well, it started with an idea of if I had a superpower, what would it be? I'm a huge Superman fan. I see you are too by the shirt there. But Superman's awesome because he's got all this stuff. But realistically, I was like, if I had to pare it down to one, what would it be? And I ended up saying, what if I knew what was on the inside of somebody, like what they were thinking at all times, who that person really was, like not even just their thoughts, but who they were, like their inner, deepest secrets.
And I could tell that right away in the book. Like, it's more than reading minds.
It is. It's really the first thing he gets. I mean, that he can't get away from is someone's emotion. How are they feeling right then? How what's going on? What's the inner workings? And then he sees their thoughts. And then when he delves deeper, he can actually see the core of a person. What drives them, what pushes them, who are they really in essence? And so I started with that idea, and I just kind of wrote a short story with it. And every time I would read it, I would add to it and add to it and add to it. And then eventually one day I'm like, oh, wow, I should probably learn how to write a novel because that's what's going on with this. So I did. It was like taking another college course. I did a lot of studying, talked with a lot of people, worked really hard to understand novel construction, plot development, the hero's journey, the character arc, and how all these things tie together. And then I went through a divorce. And so that kind of put everything on hold. The divorce was really ugly. It lasted 2 years. And after the divorce was over, I said, all right, time to pick it back up. And I picked it back up, and I started reading it, and it was like really dark and really nasty and really ugly. And I said, maybe I should wait. And so, long story short, about 2.5 years ago, I couldn't get it off my line, picked it back up, started over from scratch with the same story, and came out with something that I just said, this is awesome. I can't believe I wrote this. Right. And absolutely love it. I'm not going to say it's a masterpiece by any means, but it certainly gets the story that I wanted to tell across to people.
Do you ever have people, any friends or family that have read it that are like, are you sure this was you?
It's actually kind of funny. So I've talked with some of my artist friends here, and at my first con, I asked one of them, I said, hey, what's the dumbest question you get? And one of them looked over at another one, he goes, hey, what's the dumbest question you get? And at the same time, they both said the same thing. Did you draw this? Right? Because they're literally sitting there at the table drawing, and people would walk up and go, hey, did you draw this?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I'm drawing. And so we kind of laughed about it. Well, it wasn't 30 minutes later, and this lady walks up, and I'm standing there, and in front of my banner, and my name's all over the books, and she goes, did you write this? You wrote this book? And he kind of laughed, and when she walked away, he's like, see, I told you. I said, no, dude, it's worse. He goes, what do you mean it's worse? I said, I go to church with her. She knows me. That's my name, right? She knows me, and she just asked me if I wrote that. And so yeah, it happens where people are like, whoa, you wrote a book? You wrote this, you wrote this. And I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, and that was the thing is like, various things that I've done at various stages of my life, I get that response from some people, whether it's something like a speech I did or singing a song where they're like, I can't believe that's you. Like, yeah, it was. I thought about that. You were talking about kind of your process of writing the book and choosing to, like, okay, I'm going to do this.
Right.
And then even you said it like, I can't believe I wrote this. I'm thinking, I bet you get that from a lot of people. It's like, this is you? Like, basically, they're paying you that backwards compliment of, this is so much better than I thought you could do.
Right? Yeah. And it's kind of funny. Some of my neighbors have been the same way. We're getting all these packages, author copies coming to the house and stuff, banners, and for me to set up. And people are just kind of looking like, what in the world's going on? All of a sudden, it seems like he's getting another package every week, and they're asking questions, and I'm like, oh, it's my books. And they're like, books? I'm like, yeah, I write books. And they're like, you? Yeah. So.
Well, you told me a little bit yesterday about this first book, and then, of course, a little bit about the second book, and then, of course, third book's not out yet, but it's coming out. And so you started just giving me kind of the overview of the story. And just in the short time yesterday we spoke about it, like, you know what, I'm going to buy it and check it out. And like I told you just now, like just reading the first few pages, I'm hooked. I'm ready to read the rest of it. It looks like it's going to be a good one. But just for the listeners to our podcast, could you just walk through the names of the books and the story arc, just kind of plot lines, and maybe they'd be interested in ordering it from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first book is called, the series is called Chronicles of Stephen, okay, Stephen being the main character. And the first book is Choice of the Mighty. And so what happens is we have Stephen, who at the age of 18 develops some abilities. The way they present themselves actually scares him, and so he takes off, feeling like he's a monster or there's something wrong with him. He feels deficient in some way. And so he decides over the course of the next 5 years, hey, I'm going to do something good with this, right? He had actually references a Batman movie that he went and saw, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do some good stuff." And
I actually got a good chuckle out of that.
Okay, right. Big DC fan. I couldn't help it. But and so he goes and tries to do all this good stuff, but then tragedy happens. He makes a mess of it, like sometimes we often do when we leave home for the first time, right? And so book one starts out with him returning home back to the guy who raised him to try to figure his life out. Why do I have these abilities? What am I supposed to do with them, and how do I control them? In that process, he comes to understand that he's not alone. There's a whole community of people like him. Those people are raised in that atmosphere, whereas he isn't. But, it's a world that exists in our present-day world, just kind of behind the scenes. And he also learns that there's two different factions that are constantly fighting with each other, one representing good, one representing evil. In the beginning, it's not necessarily so clear as to who's who. And both sides want him when they figure out who he is, but he really doesn't want any part of it. He's like, I just want to go back to being me.
Yeah, well, how that feels.
Right, exactly. But in the end, because of who he is, right, he does have to make a choice.
Yeah.
And so that's the story for book one. Book two, which is Trials of the Mighty, picks up right after that. And so he's made a choice, and he's joined this group, and now he's really starting to understand some of the wheels of who he is, who the organization is, and what is really going on behind the scenes. What's this struggle between the two really all about? And so things that he thought in the beginning as far as, I should do this and then things will be great, he realizes that's not necessarily how life works. Just because you make the right choices doesn't necessarily mean things are going to get easier. They're going to go the way you want them to. Right. You have to keep fighting. You have to keep struggling. You have to keep going. And then book three, which will be out later this year, is called Redemption of the Mighty. That's going to finish kind of Stephen's origin story. At the end of that story, he's going to be the person that he was called to be, the person that he was always meant to be. And in that one, it's basically him. He's gone through all these trials. He's made his choice, but it's him coming to the realization that this is it. It's all about my choices. It's about my struggles, and it's about me accepting my destiny, and not just being part of it, but stepping out in boldness and faith and believing and pushing forward through to that.
Well, and I would say just listening to you describe the overall story arc, it sounds like if you take away the superpowers, this is pretty much everybody's life.
It is. As a matter of fact, Stephen's journey, when I started writing his journey, I kind of looked at my own life at times, and I correlate a lot with some of the characters. Stephen's definitely one of them, where I've been through some struggles in my life. I've been through times where, life just doesn't seem fair, and at times you just want to give up and walk away and say, you know what, I'll do something else, But we can't do that. We were created, we were made, we were put here for a purpose, and that purpose is to be bold and to do the things that we need to do.
Right. Well, like I said, I'm hooked by the first few pages of the first book. I'm already looking forward to the next book myself. But if we've got people listening that want to get a hold of your books, I've heard you say that it's not only available in paperback and hardback, but if you do the digital books, you can do that too. But just let us know where all we can get the Chronicles of Stephen.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can order it online through Amazon, of course, all three formats. You can order it through Nook. You can actually order it through barnesandnoble.com, or you can go in the store and order them. There's a couple stores that actually carry the book right now. Most of your online retailers that have books that are bookstores will be able to order it for you as well.
Well, Kenyon, I appreciate you taking the time to ramble on a bit with me about your books, but like I said, I'm already looking forward to them, and I know that there's got to be somebody listening that's going to be hooked by this kind of story, and I'm glad that you've made the decision to write them myself, because now I get to read them.
I appreciate it. It's been a ride so far, and I'm enjoying it.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time with me.
All right, thank you.